The humid evening air hung heavy with the scent of pine and damp earth, creating a deceptive stillness that masked the simmering tension on the docks of Lake 42. The August heat shimmered off the water in waves, distorting the approaching figure of the local game warden. David, a father fishing legally with his family, watched him come. He had seen that walk before, that expression of contempt barely concealed beneath a thin veneer of professional detachment. Warden Elias Thorne approached with the swagger of a man who believed the badge on his chest made him untouchable. His duty belt jingled with the weight of a power he had not earned. He did not approach with a greeting. He approached with a snarl. "License and registration, boy," Thorne barked, the slur hanging in the air like a foul mist. David did not flinch. He did not argue, and he did not run. He simply turned slowly, his hands visible, his calm eyes taking in every detail. He met the warden's stare with the same steady gaze that had made powerful men uncomfortable for decades. David reached into his back pocket and handed over his state fishing license, along with a secondary federal identification card. Thorne snatched the documents without a word and studied the license. A cold smile spread across his face. "You people just need to learn to follow instructions," Thorne sneered. "I don't need a reason to talk to someone who looks suspicious in my town." David kept his voice neutral. "Warden Thorne, I'm going to say this once, and I need you to hear every word. What happens in the next few minutes will determine the trajectory of the rest of your life. I am the director of the United States Fish and Wildlife Service, and my federal credentials are in your hand." Thorne laughed. It was not a pleasant sound, but the laugh of a man who had absolute confidence in his own power and authority. "Federal director, right?" Thorne mocked, shoving David back. "And I'm the President of the United States." Then Thorne wrenched David's arms behind his back. The metal handcuffs bit into his wrists with a sharp, cold snap. "You're under arrest," Thorne announced, his voice rising to a shout. David remained perfectly still. "I am going to make one phone call," he said, his voice a calm, resonant baritone. He reached for his encrypted satellite device. Thorne was still smirking when the sky above the lake began to tremble with the sound of high-speed engines. Within minutes, 3 federal interceptor boats swarmed the dock, boxing in the warden's position with surgical precision. Federal agents in tactical gear poured out, their weapons leveled directly at Warden Thorne. "Get on the ground now," the lead agent commanded, in a tone that left no room for negotiation. Thorne fell to his knees, watching in a daze of shock as the agent secured his weapon and placed him in handcuffs. The investigation that followed was swift, thorough, and devastating. Federal agents obtained Thorne's personnel file, which revealed a history of complaints from minority civilians that had been systematically dismissed by supervisors without investigation. They recovered text messages between Thorne and other officers saturated with racial slurs and jokes about planting evidence. The picture that emerged was not of a single bad actor, but of a systemic failure. Thorne was charged with deprivation of civil rights under color of law, assault, unlawful detention, and filing false reports. His trial lasted 3 weeks. Prosecutors presented video evidence, text messages, and a pattern of misconduct stretching back nearly a decade. The jury deliberated only briefly before returning a verdict of guilty on all counts. At sentencing, the judge spoke directly to Thorne before pronouncing judgment. "You targeted people because of the color of their skin," the judge declared. Thorne was sentenced to federal prison. His law enforcement certification was permanently revoked, and his pension was forfeited. The local wildlife department was placed under federal oversight, with a court-appointed monitor assigned to supervise reforms. Somewhere in a federal penitentiary, Thorne now wakes up every morning in a cell that measures 8 feet by 10 feet. The badge he once wore came with responsibilities he never bothered to honor. The system that protected him is gone. What remains is accountability. What remains is justice. If this story resonated with you, if it reminded you that accountability is possible and that courage matters, drop a comment below and share your thoughts. If you believe these stories need to be heard, hit that like button and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. And if you're not already part of this community, subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a story where the truth always wins. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a story where the truth always wins. Because as we have seen time and time again, the truth has a very long memory. Officers who abuse their power believe their badges make them untouchable. They believe that power flows in only one direction and that their prejudice will be protected by a system built to shield men like them from consequence. But they forget one crucial detail: accountability cannot be turned off. When arrogant men abuse their authority to terrorize citizens, whether it is a peaceful father on a lake, a disabled veteran like Sergeant First Class Marcus Thompson pushed onto boiling asphalt, or a 3-star general ambushed on a rain-soaked roadside, they do so believing no one important will ever know or care. They act with complete confidence that there will be no consequences. But justice does not always arrive quickly. Sometimes it waits for the right moment, the right witness, the right person who refuses to be broken. We tell these stories because what happens to these high-ranking officials happens every day to people who do not wear judges' robes, who do not have military credentials, and who do not have federal security details waiting just minutes behind them. It happens in the darkness, without cameras, and without consequence. But every time we share these moments of justice, we remind the world that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward accountability. Every time a corrupt officer is stripped of their badge, forfeits their pension, and is forced to trade their uniform for an 8 by 10-foot federal prison cell, the system of corruption cracks. The swagger that carried them down the highway disappears, and what remains is accountability. Some wars happen on distant battlefields, and others happen on local roadsides, fought with nothing but dignity and truth as weapons. So keep watching, keep believing, and never stop demanding better. The fight continues, but together, we are proving that truth and courage can reshape even the darkest situations into lasting change. Drop a comment below and let us know, what does real police accountability look like to you? Thank you for being part of the movement.